Welcome, everyone, to the Lansing Catholic Podcast. I'm Father Joe, the chaplain here. Stolpa is out. He is at St. Casimir all week doing AP testing, so we're recording this in his absence. So in the studio right now, we've got Miss Gehle. Welcome.
Hello, thank you.
We've also got Mr. Ben Pohl, the IT department incarnate. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
And Mr. Dan Spitzley, the senior theology teacher.
Very glad to be here.
But not the theology chair. Just to be clear.
That is right.
You have been teaching here the longest in the theology department as well, right?
I have, yes. This is year 19 for me.
So we're going to start with our regular updates for the week, and then we're going to talk all about conclave stuff. Now, this is interesting because by the time this episode drops, the Pope may have already been elected. So this may all be totally irrelevant by the time people are listening. But there's a lot of folks out there thinking that the conclave will take a little longer this time around. So I think it still will not be determined by Monday. But
Do we have the ability to go back and edit this to make ourselves sound more intelligent?
We could just not even post it. That might be the only way to make it sound more intelligent.
Also, just so everybody knows, Father Joe's going to run through 10 minutes of announcements before we get to the cool conclave stuff.
Yes.
Father Joe, what's going on this coming week?
Well, let's see. First of all, we've got the priesthood discernment dinner on Monday night. That's at 6:30 here at school. So any young guys thinking about priesthood, or you just want to get a free pizza dinner, come to school at 6:30 at the main entrance. We also have baccalaureate mass on Wednesday. Can you believe that?
It came quick.
Yeah, it came quick. So that will be at 7 p.m. at St. Mary Cathedral. There also is photos and things ahead of time. Like, be sure to check your email, seniors, for all the details. This podcast is not known for being super accurate on some of those things. We just give you the highlights, okay? Speaking of baccalaureate, there's also, earlier that day on Wednesday the 14th, a senior graduation practice. So be sure to show up for that so that you know what you're doing for graduation. We'll walk through where you're going to sit and where you're going to stand and all that kind of thing. On Thursday the 15th, this is kind of cool, our baseball team somehow got invited to play at Comerica Park.
Wow.
It's against another Catholic high school, I believe from Traverse City.
City, St. Francis.
Is that right? So that's kind of a cool thing. Are any of you planning on going by any chance?
I have to work that day, so.
I didn't know, but maybe I should.
I'm just finding out right now, so I'll have to check my calendar.
Well, I am planning on going, so I guess that shows you how important my work is here at the Mill. I mean, that's part of my work, just going to support the team and being the chaplain and all that. I even asked if I could be in the dugout, and they said yes. So I've never been on the field at Comerica Park or in the dugout. I'm pretty excited.
That is cool.
Do we have adoration for seniors that night? That's still on my calendar, Miss Gehle. No.
You should know.
Okay.
We do not.
Okay. Well, we had thought about doing that. Apparently, it's been canceled. So forget that. No.
We're going to tell everybody what we thought we might do next week.
I just clarifying. So no adoration on the 15th.
I might get ice cream next week.
Weren't we doing helicopter rides?
And then on Friday the 16th, we have adoration and confession all day as usual. Anything else we need to talk about, Mr. Pohl? Didn't you have something you were going to do?
We should tell listeners to get a pen and paper before they start listening to all of this and take notes and make sure they have a good eraser. We have our Cougar Core Challenge, which is a new annual fundraiser for tuition assistance, which is happening this week. If you want more information about that, you can visit lansingcatholic.org/COR. This is a fundraiser that Father Joe didn't know anything about, apparently, which is unusual for a priest to not know about raising money. So we encourage you to consider giving.
Okay. This is not exactly a school-related thing, but it's important for our diocese. So on Saturday the 17th is the diaconate ordinations for the diocese. So be sure to keep in prayer all the men that will be ordained to the diaconate, some of whom will be ordained priests the following year. So that'll be on Saturday. I think it's at St. Thomas, yes, East Lansing at 10:30. It's actually at your diaconate ordination. So a lot of people don't know this. You're ordained a deacon before you're ordained a priest, and it's at your diaconate that you commit your life to celibacy and to prayer for the church and a couple of other really important aspects of priestly life. But it all begins at diaconate, so it's a pretty big deal.
Do they do, I guess, permanent deacons at the same Mass that they do the transitional? Is it all the same?
So it depends on the year, but often, yes, it is combined. So it's interesting because it's like the older guys who tend to be the permanent deacons and then the young guys who are on the way to becoming a priest. And it's all exactly the same except for the one part when they promise celibacy. Then the young guys will step forward, and they're the only ones that make that promise.
Okay.
Yep. Well, that's all I got for that week.
Sweet.
So, Mr. Pohl, what do you have for us on the conclave? This was all your idea.
It was my idea.
Wait, hold on. He's got.
Dan's having microphone trouble.
There we go.
All right, I think we're ready.
So we're going to be doing a little trivia in just a minute.
Where's my buzzer?
There are no buzzers or sound effects. If you'd like to make a donation to the Lansing Catholic High School podcast for trivia buzzers, wait until after the core fund giving, because Paula will be upset if we raise funds for other things during that time. So.
Or just on your core fund donation, write podcast buzzer on the memo line.
That's yes. More important than tuition assistance is buzzers. But actually, a sound effect board would be really good. So obviously, conclave happening. A lot of people have been talking about the conclave, even in wider society, because it's a very intriguing thing. Read a weekly tech newsletter that mentioned the conclave and the movie Conclave, and they were like, oh, it's so interesting, like how it all works, and it's very weird and mysterious. And I was just like, it's actually not very mysterious. They tell you exactly how it happens. It's just happens in secret, which I guess is very weird and mysterious to people.
I think most people, their only concept for this stuff is political campaigning, which is all very public and has all sorts of money involved and outside influences. So the fact that there could be something that's totally removed from all that is just very foreign to most people.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a little strange. Like, obviously, there are political aspects to these kinds of things. Like, all the cardinal electors are human. Like, they're going to be influenced politically to some degree. But I think it's also hard for people to wrap their minds around that there might actually be men going into a process like this that might approach it from an actually spiritual perspective, or at least try to. We're just not used to that being the case, and I think we just have a lot of cynicism around leadership that leads to that. And yeah, are there cardinal electors who are approaching this politically? Probably, but like this is not the same as other leadership searches and things like that we have in wider society.
I wonder how much modern television informs people's imagination as well. Thinking of like Survivor, where you have a group of people get together basically for the purpose of selecting one winner, Right. So I imagine there's a little bit of,
Or the Golden Bachelor.
Did not think that would come up in this context.
Sorry.
Something else that's interesting about this conclave in particular is that it is by far the most diverse College of Cardinals we've ever had. There are cardinals from all over the world. Historically, the cardinals have always been dominated by European nations, particularly Italy, for obvious reasons. But this time around, it's, we've got a lot of African cardinals. There are cardinals from Asia. There are American cardinals. There certainly are a lot of European cardinals still, but many of them have never even met each other until this conclave, which is part of the reason why there were some headlines saying this one might take a little longer, because they just need time to talk, and there's some language barriers that will have to be sorted out and all those sorts of things. So it is fun to try to make predictions now that we've got our own school conclave prediction pool thing going on, and it's just so hard to say what's going to happen. So maybe that's part of the fascination. Everyone's just wondering, what's it going to be?
Yeah.
And how do you get that many people acquainted with each other? I imagine they get a brief opportunity to speak. Maybe there's like a talent portion of
talent show.
I wonder what kind of icebreakers they do.
I don't know.
There is one youth minister who was invited to the conclave solely to do a series of icebreakers with the Cardinals. That's got to be it.
Okay, turn to your partner and tell them one interesting thing about yourself.
Yeah. 2 truths and a lie and then confession.
That's right. See, I never watched this Conclave movie that came out. So many people have watched it and they're like, oh, it's so good. You got to watch it. And I'm just like, I don't have to. I bet it's not completely accurate. But I keep on thinking of funny things that would make me want to watch a movie called Conclave.
Right. Well,
youth minister doing icebreakers
yes.
with all the cardinals from different countries, like that I would watch.
We should recap the conversation we had the other day, because technically you don't have to be a cardinal to be elected. The only rule is that you have to be a baptized male. Right. So they could, in theory, elect some random guy, like a missionary off in the bush of Australia or something. And wouldn't that have been a much more interesting ending to the movie Conclave?
See, yeah, this
right?
is. I offer this free to Hollywood. Have you seen the movie Conclave?
I have not.
No, have you?
I have not.
Nobody has. Yes. I'm assuming it ends with a pope.
It does.
Yeah.
It ends by electing a transgender pope is how it ends.
Oh, I didn't see that coming.
That's a plot twist.
Whoa.
No agenda in that at all.
No, not at all. And clear historical precedent. Hollywood is so good at making sure there are sequels so that they can pump as much money out of a brand as possible. So actually electing a pope at the end was kind of silly. I think what they should have done is do one of those scenes at the end where, like, so when they elect or when the cardinals conclude with who they want to elect a pope, the pope has to accept, or the elect has to accept. So I think they should have tried to elect somebody who wasn't present, like not a cardinal. It should have been a scene where, somebody looks at the piece of paper with the name, you can't see it on camera though, and their eyes get big and they pass along the piece of paper to somebody, and they leave the Vatican and they pass it to somebody who gets on a plane, and that person flies, and then they land in Africa somewhere and they pass it to somebody else who takes a Jeep out in the middle of nowhere in Africa, and they hand it to this missionary priest who looks at it, has a heart attack, and dies. And then there has to be a sequel because there's no pope. So then
let's do another conclave.
Right, they got a Conclave Part 2. So that's my offer to Hollywood.
So, Father, you're saying any eligible man really worldwide. So for the next few days, I get unknown number on my phone. I have to answer it, basically.
It could be some sort of apostolic nuncio who's trying to track down a Mr. Daniel Spitzley from Lansing, Michigan.
That's right. That's right.
I'd like to have that conversation with your wife. Hey, got a phone call today.
I think I would lead with, we're about to get a better house.
That's a good start.
And some really cool security guards.
That's right. So I think, Dan, though, the only way you could really be considered is if you win our trivia contest.
Okay.
And in fact, the only way that you can keep your job as a theology teacher is if you win the trivia contest, at least by beating ChatGPT, who is our fourth contestant in our trivia contest. So myself...
I might have better odds on being named Pope.
Myself, Miss Gehle, and Dan Spitzley will be competing in a trivia contest coordinated by Father Joe Campbell, who is currently searching for Pope trivia on his computer. I will be typing the questions into ChatGPT to see if any of us can beat ChatGPT at the trivia contest. And if Dan wins, he gets to keep his job and be considered for Pope. If he loses, well, his life is in ruins.
All right, first question. Here we go. How long was the longest conclave in history? Guess about how many months. Let's see if you can get that right.
I'm going to go 37 months.
45 months.
32 months.
Wait, is this like Price is Right? Can I go 1 month and if
you just get to make one guess. That's
okay,
it.
Okay, 37.
Let's see what ChatGPT says.
34 months total. It says it was Pope Gregory X, November 1268 to September 1271.
Yep, that is correct. So whose answer was closest? I think yours was the closest.
What did you say?
I said 37.
I said 32.
Oh,
then yours is the
mind.
closest. So there's a
But
point
ChatGPT wins.
for Ben.
I knew
this
it was
one,
around 3 years.
I know.
This one isn't really a question. It's more just interesting. I thought I'd throw this in here. So the cloistered nature of the conclave posed an interesting challenge, which was just staying healthy, because there were a lot of problems with just hygiene and all that while they were locked inside the Sistine Chapel. And I didn't realize this was the case until very recently. So it was only in 1996 that the Domus Santa Marta was built. It's a little guest house nearby where they stay after they're finished voting. But prior to that, they were literally locked in the Sistine Chapel. They'd pull out cots, and I don't know what the bathroom situation was, but conclaves became sort of notorious for these old cardinals getting quite sick.
My free version of ChatGPT can't handle this long of a question. So
that wasn't a question.
It was built in 1996.
Okay, here's the next actual question.
Do I get a point for that?
So, as I said, it is not required that you be a cardinal to be the Pope. So, when was the last time someone who was not a cardinal was elected?
I don't know. The 15th century.
17th century, 1600s.
I'm going to go 8th century.
Oh. And ChatGPT says 1378, the 14th century.
Correct.
Urban the Sixth.
Urban the Sixth. So I think Sydney was closest.
Ha!
There we
We
go.
are well on our way
Great.
to
Point for
AI
you.
theology
Yes,
teachers.
a new position opening.
I got a lot of work to do this summer.
College of Cardinals has been dominated by European cardinals for a very long time, mostly Italians. So let's see who can name some of the non-Italian cardinals who have been elected. So we'll start with Ben. It's your turn to go first.
Name some of the, well, Pope Francis.
All right, so that's one. We'll go to somebody else next. So there's a point for Ben.
I'll go with John Paul II.
All right, Miss
Okay.
Gehle.
Pope Benedict.
Very good. He was German. Back to you, Ben. You got any more? The rest are very obscure, so I'd be impressed if you get any of these.
St. Peter.
Okay.
Whoa.
Linus.
Was he was he not Pope? Was he or was he not Pope?
Okay.
Cletus. Clement.
That's right.
And I'm pretty sure he wasn't born in Italy,
Okay, I'm going to limit these to the
unless
second,
he was a fisherman who was very astray.
the second
gosh.
millennium, not the first millennium. How about that?
I
'Cause
object.
there's a whole bunch in the
Heretic.
very beginning that
Heretic.
you could list.
Heretic. The papacy was an invention of
So, ruling
Of the
out the
Catholic
first
Church.
millennium of the church, do you have any other names you could add?
I'll just make one up. Pope Sylvester the First.
No.
Well,
John the 18th.
Nope.
I got nothing.
Okay, so the only other ones is Alexander the Seventh, elected in 1492. Hey, that's the year that Columbus sailed. He was Spanish. And then Gregory the Third, elected in 731. That would go against my own rule. He was the first millennium, but he was Syrian. And then Adrian the Sixth, elected in 1522, who was from the Netherlands. So right now, do you want to hear the standings? No. We'll,
No.
well, first
I
I
don't.
would just like to say that ChatGPT didn't have any of the people you just listed.
ooh, so they lose a point.
They also had St. Peter listed because guess what? He was a pope. So anyway, go on. What were you going to say?
All right, next question. This one's a little different. We're going to start by naming the most recent pope, and we're going to keep working our way back and see how far back we can get with the popes. Now, you get after someone names the pope, the next person can then name their birth name. Last name alone is sufficient. We'll see how many of these we get. So I think it's Dan's turn to go first. So who was our last pope, Dan?
I believe Pope Francis.
It's a good
All
guess.
right, so now that's a point for you. Then it goes to Sydney. What was his birth name?
Jorge Bergoglio.
Very good. That's a point for you. Next, we'll go to Mr. Pohl. Who was the pope before Francis?
Pope Benedict the 16th.
And Dan, what was his birth name?
Joseph Ratzinger.
Very good. All right, Miss Gehle, who was
good.
before Benedict?
Pope John Paul II.
All right,
Karol Wojtyła.
very good. We're moving along. So
This
who's
does not
before?
line up well for you, Sydney. I'm going to go
it's
with
over.
Pope John Paul I.
Pope John Paul I.
And nobody knows his actual name.
Sydney, do you know
He
his
was very
birth
upset
name?
about being
I have no
elected
guesses.
pope.
Do you want to try to guess?
I have no idea.
You want to guess? His birth name was Albino Luciani.
I could have made up
Very
could have made up an
Italian.
Italian name, but it would have been insensitive.
What was his first name?
Albino or
Albino.
albino?
Albino?
Yeah,
Really?
Albino Luciani. So who was the pope before John Paul I?
gosh.
Well, I know
This might be a bad guess, but Paul VI.
Paul the Sixth.
yeah.
Bingo.
Whew,
Ben,
theology
what
Oh my
was,
gosh, I
what
know
was
this
his
guy.
name?
I know his name. Ah, dang. I can't, I don't know. I can't think
try?
of it.
I know there's a Eugenio in there somewhere, but I don't know if it was Paul VI. I don't know.
Oh, no, you're going a little further back.
I'm going too far back.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he has, according to Wikipedia, has a very long name, Giovanni Battista Enrico Antonio Maria Montini.
Montini is the name I was
Montini was his
trying to
name.
think of. Yep.
All right, so now we would start with
ChatGPT nailed it.
Ben. What was the Pope before Paul VI?
Oh, wait. I was looking at ChatGPT. I thought we were moving on. I was looking at ChatGPT's answers. But I know this anyway. It's John the 23rd.
John the 23rd. Dan, what was his birth name?
I really have no idea.
Nope.
I recognize these once you say them, but to
Yeah.
actually
I'm
have them
cheating.
committed.
Ben's looking at
Not,
ChatGPT.
Go ahead.
Angelo Giuseppe Roncalli.
Oh, yeah.
ChatGPT got that.
Yep.
Let's move on to another question.
Wait, we got it.
Since we are
If we
There's
could
a
just
few
name
more.
the Pope name.
Yeah,
we could
let's
do
at least.
this,
I want to
but
see how far
we're
we
not
can go with the
gonna
Pope
know.
names.
I
So
know
Dan,
others.
who was the Pope before John the 23rd?
I'm going to go with Pius XII.
Very good, Sydney. I'll give you a big hint. His name was said earlier. If you're listening.
Oh, great. Was it Eugenio?
Yes, Eugenio Pacelli.
Oh, wait, we're going to continue with their real names? This is soon going to get into the realm of just making up Italian names.
Let's just see if we can get any of the popes before Pius XII. So, does anybody know who was before Pius XII?
Dan, your job's on the line.
Pius the 11th?
Yes, very
Wow.
good. That was guessing, but very good. And
And before that?
his name was Ambrogio Damiano Ancilli Ratti.
Oh, that was going to be my second guess.
And then before that was Benedict XV,
I was going to make a guess. I would just...
Giacomo Chiesa, and then before that was Pius X. So that's the popes of the last century. There you go. Well, what do you think is the status of Dan's job at this point? Should we go over the scores?
Do we announce whether I keep my job or lose it based on the color of smoke that comes out of the building?
So the standings of this short little trivia round would be Mr. Pohl with 5 points, Miss Gehle with 6 points, Mr. Spitzley with 6 points.
Wow, is there a sudden
I think
death?
we have to
Tied
have a
with him.
face-off.
Oh,
That is
no.
pretty close.
Deathmatch.
I didn't come prepared with a final question.
Oh,
Man,
let's think.
new guard, old guard
gosh.
battle here.
That's
Ooh,
right.
I just thought of a question.
Student versus teacher.
I know, seriously.
Yes.
Maybe this is too easy, but does any...
Oh, wait.
We'll see what you think of this question. Does any of you know who designed the uniform of the Swiss Guard?
I do not.
I will go with Da Vinci.
Nope.
Nope.
Good guess.
Michelangelo?
Michelangelo.
Really?
That was one of the two.
Oh,
Now I'm tied again.
well,
All right, tiebreaker for the two of you. I think this is one that's just, it's going to be another century. In what century did the popes start wearing white?
I don't know. The 13th century?
I will go.
I'm pretty sure it's because there was a Dominican
It was.
pope that was
Really?
elected.
And he
Really?
refused to wear the fancy papal attire and said he just wore his Dominican habit.
Yep.
And then it
But
stopped.
I don't know I didn't know the year,
It's
so I'm
definitely
asking
not the
ChatGPT.
13th century.
Boy, I will go with the 14th century.
1566 to 1572 was the reign of Pope Pius V.
That was pure luck. That doesn't
all good.
count for
But
anything.
you keep your job,
I
so
just
that's
wanted to
it.
guess something after St. Dominic was alive.
Which is smart.
Yes, that was.
That's right.
Well, I think that's about all we got today, folks. Let's keep the conclave in prayer if we have not had a pope elected at this point. And be sure to tune in next week for all the latest here at Lansing Catholic. I'm Father Joe,
I'm Dan Spitzley.
I'm Miss Gehle.
I'm Ben Pohl.
and we'll see you next time.